AEW Pay Per Views are too long, according to talent. Plus, WWE are running head to head with All In. And we have an update on an injured WWE star. It's all in the Cultaholic Wrestling news right now. The Pay Per Views are too damn long.
That's what they're saying.
That's what they're saying on the streets and behind the scenes at AEW. So traditionally, AEW pay-per-views are about 4 hours long, but every show this year has ran well over 4 hours. And I believe so. I think that Revolution was just over four, maybe by about 10 minutes or so, just over 4 hours. Dynasty was nearly 4.5 hours. Double or Nothing felt over 4.5 hours.
Double or Nothing felt particularly long. As we sit here today, my body clock hasn't quite yet caught up from Double or Nothing over the weekend. But that one especially did feel long. And it's not the only time in AEW's history where it's a few pay-per-views in a row have particularly ran long. But this is apparently caught some attention backstage within the company as well.
So this comes from Brian Alvarez of Wrestling Observer Live. He says, yesterday I spent the whole day, talked to all sorts of people in AEW, and I'll say with one exception, because if I say everybody, then, you know, it was actually everybody. Oh, right. Every single person was like, these shows are too long. We all know it. They should end before midnight on the East Coast. Like every single person in that company I talked to, except Tony, because I don't talk to him because, of course, he doesn't think they're too long. Every single person there is like, they're too long. He just does it. We can't stop it. There's nothing that can be done. I hear it from fans as well. Yeah, we had to leave the show early. We've got kids. The shows are too long. Everybody knows it's too long, except Tony and his small handful of the sickos that would watch the shows if they were 9 hours long.
Yes.
So it's something that is echoed from the fans, certainly echoed from people watching at home. You know, obviously here in the UK, we notice it quite a lot as well because, you know, when I used to do live reactions for AEW pay-per-views, it would completely ruin my body clock for a couple of days afterwards. You know, that's a UK problem, obviously, but when people who are in the arena are saying, we've got to leave early, that sucks.
Yes, it does. It's a bit of a double-edged sword, though. Or not a double-edged sword. There's kind of two sides to the story, because despite the long running times, it's fair to say that AEW pay-per-views in 2025 have largely been praised in terms of quality, especially Double or Nothing, which I heard one reputable wrestling voice say was his show of the year so far.
It was really, really strong.
And that was Ross Tweddle who said that.
Ross said that.
Ross said it was a show of the year. And I looked back with fresher eyes the next day and thought, you know what, he might be right. He might well be right. There's a lot of stuff to enjoy on that show. As many of us have said, I feel like there really is a sweet spot. WWE shows can feel quite sparse and big gaps between matches and loads of adverts and a disrupted flow. AEW shows can go way too long with way too much attempted to be crammed in. And there's got to be a sweet spot between the two.
Yeah, we have to find it, don't we? There was one AEW talent that didn't have an issue with the length of the pay-per-view, and that was Ricochet. He tweeted, honestly, even if we changed something, it would just be something else that people would complain about.
You're generalising there, Ricochet. You're generalising very slightly there, sir, I would say.
Generalising Johnson over there, Ricochet?
Yeah.
We see. But to go back to what was said by Ross, and what's been echoed by quite a few people, Double or Nothing in-ring was an excellent pay-per-view.
There was various... I think as well, because... for example, if you're into silly over-the-top carnage and everything, then the Anarchy in the Arena match is absolutely for you. If you're into hard-hitting, grittier action, maybe the Mercedes Moné Jamie Hayter match. If you're into big epic main event stuff, the main event fulfilled that brief to a T. I think it was a good one because there was different styles on show. Sometimes they can run into difficulty, like any wrestling promotion, when it's just too much of the same thing. And AEW have been guilty of that in the past, but in this case, despite it being a very long show, I have to admit that it did seem to blend the action together relatively well, to the point where it's many people's show of the year.
Exactly. So that main event that you briefly mentioned there, lots to talk about coming out of that one. Fightful reporting that AEW and Tony Khan kept the result of the Owen Hart final solidly under wraps. This included to the performers themselves. It was been reported they found out on the day of the show. PW Insider has mentioned that. And it was indicated to Fightful by those in the know. It was actually earlier in the weekend that Hangman Page and Will Ospreay found out. But either way, it was very close to the actual event where they found out who was going to win. The most wholesome part of this whole story is in the process of sort of getting to this match. according to Fightful, you had Hangman Page saying Will Ospreay should definitely win this, and you had Will Ospreay saying Hangman Page should definitely win this. They both wanted the other to win.
I saw a really funny tweet. I retweeted it. I believe it was from the Twitter account Alan Cheapshot, who just responded to that news story with just a photo of Kevin Nash looking bemused, going, "What?
Why are you lobbying for the other person to win? That's not how we played in my game."
I have to say, to be fair, from my experience of Will Ospreay, that story absolutely checks out, because even though he was quite a high-profile guy in WCPW, he, I believe, wanted Martin Kirby to beat him in the match where Martin Kirby pulled off that upset and beat him.
He finally hit the Zoidberg elbow.
Yeah, we were quite scared about that result because he was with New Japan at the time, and we thought, oh no, or at least he was starting to make inroads into New Japan. We thought, are we allowed to do this? But I think, I hope I'm not misremembering this. From what I heard, it was Ospreay himself who was like, no, Kirby should win this one, and it went down like a storm.
Yeah, that's it. So it's kind of, as you say, it does track. Fightful also adds that Jon Moxley had leaned towards wanting Hangman Page to win the match. Whether or not that had any bearing on the actual decision, we don't quite know. Obviously, that decision finally ends with Tony Khan and his team around him, but primarily Tony Khan. Ultimately, as you say, Hangman got the win. Backstage, the vibe, according to Fightful, was that of shock. A lot of people thought that Will Ospreay was going to win this. I thought that too, to be honest with you.
I thought that as well. I believe on the podcast the week prior, or the episode of the podcast prior to the show itself, myself, Ross, and Joel all went for Ospreay, and only Matthew went for Hangman, and he was correct. So fair play to him. Yeah, I think it was a pretty shocking result as well, but not one that I necessarily disagree with, because I think in the build they did a great job of giving both men a viable storyline should they win the match.
And also, of course, it makes sense. It's an anxious millennial cowboy in the main event of All In Texas.
Yes.
Actually, the more you think about it, you go, well, of course that tracks.
That is true, but I do think that they did a good job of keeping both options open. Because
definitely.
Ospreay really emphasized the fact that shortly after All In Texas is Forbidden Door in London, and he was saying, I want to defend this belt in front of my friends and family and all that sort of stuff. So there were strong possibilities for both. I think most people, myself included, just plumped for Ospreay because Hangman's already been the champion, and maybe it was but I certainly wouldn't be against him winning it again. He is a compelling, anxious millennial man.
And he will have that opportunity to do so at All In Texas, which we have learned.
Oh, what if he doesn't win?
Let's not worry about that. Let's not worry about that.
Okay.
All In Texas will have some competition because shock horror drama, WWE running head to head with All In Texas.
Yeah, so we saw that this last weekend where they ran NXT Battleground on the same night as Double or Nothing. Now they're going to be running NXT The Great American Bash on the same night as All In Texas on the afternoon of Saturday, July 12th. It'll be part of a 3-show weekend in Atlanta, Georgia, along with Saturday night's main event and the all-women's pay-per-view Evolution, the return of that pay-per-view, the long-awaited return of that pay-per-view, I should say.
Yeah, so we already knew that there was sort of rumblings that this show was coming back, was Evolution coming back, and that WWE wanted to run a Saturday night's main event around All In Texas, but adding NXT Great American Bash as well, I think is sort of supercharging that weekend, whilst AEW have their big show of the year in Texas. Now, Great American Bash is going to be held at the Center Stage Theater, Saturday night's main event, and Evolution will be at the State Farm Arena, we understand. But even so, taking over the area. And as I said, running up against AEW All In Texas. We see you. Sadly, one person that won't be factored into the all-women's pay-per-view returning will be Zoe Stark. She suffered an injury on Raw last week, attempting a springboard dropkick. We got the nature of her injury in the form of an Instagram photo, didn't we, Jack?
Yes, she shared a photo of her leg in a heavy brace following knee surgery, declaring that she is on day one of her road to recovery. It does seem as though this confirms fears that the injury, which she suffered recently, would put her on the sidelines for an extended period of time. Fightful Select reports that sources backstage at WWE don't expect Zoe Stark to be back in the ring for the remainder of 2025 at least, which is a massive shame. You never want to see any wrestler get injured in such a fashion, especially because it was quite visually scary as well, that spot and everything. Hopefully she is back as quickly and as fully recovered as possible. And I think it's often quite it's often quite commendable how wrestlers are able to keep this positive attitude. Like she's taken that as right. It's day one of the next stage of my career, and I think that's fair play to her, and I hope she does well.
What would we like to see her do when she comes back? I think there's if she's able to entering in the Rumble, I think it's a nice way to make an impact upon she return.
Whatever she does, whenever she's available to return, I think she has to be a babyface now when she comes back, because of the nature of the injury and the fact that when someone returns from injury, the crowd are naturally happy to see them. I think making her a babyface, possibly even going against her former stablemates, would be a good shout or something like that. I don't know, but I think that she's got all the athletic ability in the world and never really got a chance to showcase that as fully as maybe she deserved on the main roster. So this may be not a blessing in disguise, because it's horrible to see this injury, but maybe a fresh start could help move her up to the next level.
Quite possibly. A very selfish plug for something I'm doing.
Her stablemates have gone. They've been released. Oh, ignore that booking decision. Sorry. She should be a babyface when she comes back.
Do you know what? That slipped my mind as well. So don't worry, you're not alone on that one.
Goodness me.
You're not alone on that one.
Sorry, Tom, your plug, yes.
Apologies, yeah. Very shameless plug here. I'm taking part in the Great North Run in September. I'm doing it again. I'm currently sort of 2 stone, over 20, that'd be 28 pounds, nearly 30 pounds lighter.
Fantastic.
Than when I did it last year, which is amazing. I'm doing the Great North Run for the Mid Yorkshire Hospitals Charities. A very special friend of ours is currently going through an incredible battle. And my hospital charity have been really supporting her and her family through it. And I thought the least I can do is do a half marathon across the northeast.
Why not?
So that's what we're doing. If you're in a position to do so, there's a link down there if you want to sponsor. 100% of all my cameos until September are going to the charity as well. If you want me to say happy birthday to somebody, or even have Jack say happy birthday to somebody as well, we're all there at cultaholic.com.
Yes, we are.
I haven't mentioned that in a while, but nice to do.
Go for Tom's one though.
But do whatever. And look, we've hit 25% of our target so far. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much for the support. It's reaching that point where I go, actually, now all I got to do now is actually do the half marathon.
Yes, but but it seems like you've started preparing quite early. You'll be right by then. You'll be all right.
Oh no,
you've done it once, Tom.
I've done it once. We'll play that game again. More importantly, for the very latest wrestling news at any time, you can check out cultaholic.com. Stay safe. Love you. Bye.